As his team was putting this event together, Councilmember Ridley-Thomas was very explicit about a few things. He wanted to welcome his most esteemed friends and colleagues to a campus and community that means a lot to him. He wanted to celebrate the newest asset on the campus, the Wellness Center, which is named in his and Mrs. Ridley-Thomas's honor. And he wanted an opportunity for all of you to hear from some of his closest collaborators and confidants, his partners in crime, if you will, during a dialogue which we will turn to next. But it was incumbent upon us to take some liberties here because we're indeed celebrating his 30 years of public service in elected office. So please join me in bringing your attention to the screen for a short video of the man, the myth, the legend, the lovely, the talented Councilmember Mark Ridley-Thomas.
MRT is the man.
He's emoji mad. He's emoji mad. We got fingers, we got hearts. But I love it is the fact I frequently wonder, where is he sending this text from?
He's active with the emojis. He's the only elected official I know who sends emojis both by text and email. And he's pretty good with the power fist for the bump.
I think the emojis that I seem to get the most from him is thumbs up. Not thumbs down, but always thumbs up.
I text him, and I text him a lot, and inevitably I'm going to get the fist bump right back.
Just the praying hands, and that makes perfect sense. My personal nickname for him is Reverend Doctor, which he's both of those things to me.
MRT is incomparable.
But I've heard time and time again, make it plain, or the business is the business. But I didn't quite get the voice down right.
He was assigned a city council committee back in the 90s. That was not the best committee, but he rebranded it right at a perfect time. This is when the internet was coming in, broadband was coming in, and it became the most prestigious committee on the city council.
I think his biggest legacy was what he did at the Martin Luther King Hospital campus. He was responsible for us building a hospital there and operating it. There's a whole campus there that he was responsible for.
MRT is always ready to throw down for us.
The concept of educating, engaging, and empowering, those words roll off our tongue now, but back then nobody knew what it meant.
And I think again this comes from his own roots as an organizer, a community organizer and activist, is to be able to say policy planning, government is not something should be done to people. It should not even be done for them. It should be done with them. But saying that is only half the battle. It's making it possible, coming up with a vehicle and infrastructure to make that really possible. I like to call it participatory democracy, really is. And so that to me is another real piece of his legacy, that he didn't just talk about that, didn't just describe that or wish for that. He actually put it into practice.
Our first Empowerment Congress with a couple hundred people, I come back and the Empowerment Congress is at 800, 900, 1,000, 2,000. It's really incredible, and it started with his work and his notion of what it means to have a community engagement and how he built that into a movement that is now 99 neighborhood councils strong in the city of Los Angeles. So I think that's definitely a legacy that he will leave.
MRT is just extraordinary.
And extraordinarily just.
It didn't really surprise me that he put his commitment to helping the homeless ahead of his own personal political ambitions. That's, you know, he served in office for 30 years. He's won 11 elections without ever losing one. But he put all that aside because he said these are a critical 15 months. And if I spend them all raising money and trying to run for mayor, I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do with the homeless.
We have a lot of goals to reach to house people, and he's going to be leading the way. And we're going to be following him as fast as we can.
MRT is visionary.
One thing that surprised me about MRT is how frequently this man washes the dishes. Ms. Ridley-Thomas has got him in line. And that's one of the things he's let me know early on, that you got to take care of things at the home front no matter what you're doing in public service. So a lot of those check-in calls I get from Councilmember Ridley-Thomas, he's washing the dishes. And so that's become a staple of how I operate at home and when I do a lot of my call time.
I love the phrase that he often uses, so-and-so is in the house. So that he has a wonderful way of recognizing people. Every once in a while he'll even say, Mary Louise Oates is in the house.
Which is the biggest compliment. His energy is inexhaustible. He can, I mean, it's like you get a call at 7, you get a call at 11, that's AM, that's a PM, but that's why he gets so much accomplished.
I got to tell you, his legacy is still a work in progress. He's not done. You know, this is not his retirement event. He is still working hard, and I think it's going to grow. I'm thankful for that, and the city of LA should be thankful for that.
And now a special treat for all of you. You may not know that the group that I am about to call to the stage has known each other all very well for 30 years, as well as the councilman. It's a group that has transformed our civic discourse, both on a local and national stage for decades, transformed the landscape of this city for decades, and we are truly honored to have them here to engage us and enlighten us. It's my pleasure to welcome to the stage, first, of course, the Honorable Mark Ridley-Thomas, a man who at this point, after that video, needs no introduction. Councilman. Second, Mrs. Avis Ridley-Thomas. In addition to having just proudly celebrated a 42-year anniversary with the council member, she served for 25 years as the director of the city's Dispute Resolution Center, and since 2011 has served as the co-director and founder of the Institute of Nonviolence. The Honorable Karen Bass, representing the 37th District. Prior to her time in Washington, the Congressmember made history as the first ever African-American woman to serve as Speaker of any state legislative body. And before her time in office, she worked as both a physician assistant and as a community organizer, founding the Community Coalition in the early 1990s. And the incomparable Dr. Cornel West. Bounding to the stage, Dr. West is a world-renowned philosopher, an activist, and social critic. Over the course of his career, he has held professorships and fellowships at Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Dartmouth, Pepperdine, and the University of Paris. He is currently a Dietrich Bonhoeffer Professor of Philosophy and Christian Practice at Union Theological Seminary. Please join me in a round of applause for this esteemed group of individuals. I've got a mic on. We're going to check the mic. Make sure you can hear me. Everybody, can you hear me okay? All right. First, raise your hand if you've gotten an emoji in a text from the councilman. Wow. Just about everybody. All right. So we're going to begin our dialogue now, and this is the treat. This is where we kind of get to know a little bit that maybe you didn't get to know before. And I'll start with MRT and ask you first, what drove you initially to public service? And when was that germ planted in you?
Well, thank you very much. Let's give Mark Brown a big round of applause. I was sitting at my desk.
You can't hear me.
All right, Stanley, you got to do better than this.
There we go.
Here we go. Now, thank you very kindly. Supervisor Mitchell is sitting in her chair signifying and giving me instructions. She already told everybody that I was rude for acknowledging the fact that J.M. Lawson Jr. will celebrate his 93rd birthday on on the 22nd of September, this month. Now, if that's rude, call me rude, but if I can get to be 93 and represent like he did, somebody ought to clap your hands once again and celebrate the fact that he's still going strong. I'm sitting at my desk at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference under the tutelage of Dr. Lawson when the call said a person on the city council by the name of Robert Farrell, who was my immediate predecessor, would not seek re-election. And it became those individuals' notion that after spending a decade at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference working on all manner of projects, policy, and the like, and Pastor Lawson made reference, Bishop Blake, to the fact that I had just about that time completed, a couple of years earlier, the PhD under the able assistance mark of Professor West, who was my guide in many respects from his vantage point of already having gone through that in teaching and so forth. And so it then became an opportunity for me to move from activism, civil rights, human rights, into service from the perspective of leadership in the official space. And I've done that with a great degree of regard for honoring my oath. And that's ultimately what drove me then, and it has sustained me for that period of time and to now.
Avis Ridley-Thomas, a question for you, first of all. This may sound funny. What did you see in him? And by that, what I mean... what I mean by that is, what did you see in MRT that made you think this is somebody that I want to get to know, that I want to be a partner with? What did you see, and could you foresee that 30 years, or not 42 years later, excuse me, that we would be in this position?
Well, you may know that we met in high school as high school seniors. And what I could see at that time was a very decent young man. And my girlfriends were telling me that from a little boy, they knew what kind of person he was. He demonstrated that. And that any relationship with him, they were sure, especially my girlfriend Cookie. She was sure that would be a great relationship. So I had support, I had information, background information, and that's what made the difference. So it's not that I saw it, other people saw it too.
A lot of people change from high school to adulthood, change in all kinds of ways, good and bad. How would you say he has changed from the time you met him way back then till now?
I would say the respect of the legacy of Mama Sylvia Thomas it's reverberated throughout our lives. And when she passed, I saw him commit even more to the teachings and the vision that she saw for him too. So that's what I observed, that influence of Mama Sylvia. And I remember Carolyn Webb de Macias, who is here, said that, Mama Sylvia had this saying. Now, I can't recall it. Let me think of it. Okay. If a task is once begun, do not leave it till it's done. Be the labor great or small, do it well or not at all. And he has adhered to that. In various positions that he has occupied, he's kept to that same commitment. That's his behavior throughout. That's the string throughout.
Wow. Councilmember Bass, how did you come, Councilmember Bass, excuse me, Congressmember Bass. Well, never mind. I'm not. How did you come to get to know the councilman, and what did, you know, how have your careers kind of have paralleled over the years?
Well, first of all, it's wonderful to be here. It's so nice to see people. I feel like I haven't seen people in a very long time. So this is a great reunion of actually, I was thinking, Mark and Avis, this is a couple of generations here who grew up under Pastor Lawson and his teachings and leadership. But I met Mark in 1978. So when I think about 30 years in public service, that's in elected office. To me, public service is not just in elected office. So we meet 12 years before. We were working on a project, and that's why he's laughing. And so from there, I knew he was committed to the fighting for social change. That was his life commitment, and it was certainly my life commitment. And in the course of meeting him, discovered that his half-brother and sister were my first cousins, one of whom is here today.
Wow.
Lee Truce. It's part of our family is here. So, so my cousin told me, you know, you have a cousin that's involved in the same thing you are. And so it was from there. But when I met him in 1978, I mean, we were involved in a lot of different things. Solidarity with independence movements around the world. There was issues around police. There was the anti-apartheid movement. So when I think of Mark's legacy, I think of it before and during being in public service. And the thing that's so amazing is that you can really drive around town. You want to ask what he's done, just drive around town and look and see. Right here in this campus. And that's an amazing contribution.
Professor West.
Is that okay, Mark?
That's all right. International travel.
How did you come to meet the councilman? And also, it's a two-part question. How did you come to know him? And as an observer, a student of public policy, of issues of equality, social justice over the years, where do you find him in that, among those that you have observed?
Yeah, let me say, I am so deeply blessed to be here, and it has been 42 magnificent years that I have been graced by the presence and the witness of my dear sister Avis and Mark. And Sister Karen, you're so right. When I met them, they were on fire for public service. Mark just happened to spill over into the electoral political system. We had big debates on that because it's got some structural constraints we won't get into right now. But he's a force for good and others inside of that, you see. But I do want to say this just very briefly because you see, I have a love for Sister Avis and Brother Mark that goes beyond language, that they have enriched my life in such a powerful, powerful way. And it has everything to do with the fact that they, like all of us on this stage, we come from a people who have been so hated, but keep dishing out love warriors every generation. Every generation. And when I met these two, I said, these are my kind of people. Ain't nothing fake and phony about them. And it's not just about justice. The great Niebuhr used to say, any justice that's only justice soon degenerates into something less than justice. Because they've never talked about justice in terms of a career. They've never talked about justice in terms of a profession. It's always a calling. It's always a vocation. It is a way of being in the world. And I think it has everything to do with precisely what Sister Avis was talking about. That they are who they are because somebody loved them in the face of this hatred coming at them, you see. And so they allowed me into their crib. I became the uncle of two love warriors of that generation, Sebastian St. Clair, you see. And so I get elevated, I get empowered just by trying to spend some time with them. Meaning what? That they love the people so much that service is just the consequence of it. And when you really love the folk, you can't stand the fact that they're being treated unjustly. They don't have health care. I ain't gonna just talk about it. I gotta do something about it. They're homeless. I can't just talk about it. I gotta do something about it. What you gonna do, Mark? I don't know, Brother West. Let's just sing a song. And music that's been played here, I want to salute. Mm-hmm. Because the music comes out of a traumatized people who decided to be wounded healers. So when you hear Curtis Mayfield, when you hear Sly Stone, when you hear Donny Hathaway, that's part and parcel of who Avis is. That's part and parcel of who Mark is. Mm-hmm. The people who somehow sustain these love waves in an ocean. Lawson, one of the great waves. And we've got two mighty, mighty waves in Avis and in Mark. Mm-hmm. So now when you put their name on the building, you're simply saying, lo and behold, these black folks still dishing out love warriors even in the 21st century in their own distinctive, unique, and singular way. And that's why I'm so blessed just to be here. And I hate to my wife, and I say, I'm not missing this for nothing. Because, well, I'm telling you, when I get a chance to be with Mark and Avis, both of whom I take a bullet for in a minute, I mean, there's a whole lot of folk I take a bullet in the foot, but not in the heart now. Oh, yeah, you can have my foot, but not in the heart. That's who we're talking about here, Avis and Mark Ridley-Thomas.
Wow, okay. When I first met you, MRT, am I supposed to use this? Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, great. When we first met, it was as I was a young reporter, not so young. You were a young activist. And the battle at that time, Daryl Gates and Gatesism, I'll call it, within the LAPD, and the structural injustices that were rampant at the time. And what struck me was that you were engaged in combat, but you were not personally combative. Your style. Can you talk about the way that you went about addressing injustice?
Well, I think one of the things I've learned on this journey is to not let the forces of evil diminish your sense of humanity and purpose in life. In other words, some of the fundamental tenets of nonviolence is to suggest non-cooperation with evil is one of the highest displays of nonviolent philosophy. Some of the experiment that George McKenna sought to do when he was the principal at Washington High to treat the youngsters there that violence made you less of a person. But violence comes in a variety of forms. And so I get upset about a lot of these things, and I express that in language that wouldn't be approved of by Pastor Anderson, Pastor Johnson, Bishop Blake, or Pastor Lawson. You do understand, do you not? But the point that I would want to make is this. You got to stay focused on the objective that's being sought. My objective was to cause Daryl Gates not to remain as chief of police in the city of Los Angeles because he had done us serious damage. I'll give a shout out to the chief of police of the Los Angeles Police Department who's here, Michael Moore, a different kind of cut, different breed, trying to do it differently, not easy. Councilman Curran Price and Councilman Marquise Harris Dawson and I met with Chief Moore the other day, and we tried to keep it civil. But the work in terms of excessive use of force, the work that is in play with respect to police accountability and so forth, and reimagining law enforcement is still very, very real, and we've got to be all about that. And I would want to say this. Congresswoman Bass and I were working on that. Then we're working on it now. The George Floyd bill, she lifted on. You ought to acknowledge that. She lifted on that bill. This work continues, and if I were to invoke James Cleveland, I ain't no ways tired. We've got to go all the way in on this. In some ways, this issue with respect to black and brown young men primarily, but women as well, is in some way more challenging than it was when I began in the killing of Eula Love in 1978, Anthony. Let's take that in for a moment. Mary, it ain't easier. It's incredible. Causes us want to think about what the implications of abolitionism really is about. We've got to do better, work harder. And we cannot back up from that fundamental struggle. That was my mandate in '91. The mandate in my mind now is that of homelessness, the defining moral issue of our time. And so, Mark, we've got to keep pressing on issues, because that's what we are obliged to do. That's what we're called to do. And I'm grateful for Avis's insights in terms of the role of mediation and conflict resolution in all of these areas. That's kind of in concert with the philosophy of nonviolence, essentially suggesting that it is resident in each of us to get to a better result and conclusion if we recognize that that can be ultimately realized. And there were no big words in what I just said. I just tried to roll it out simple. That's kind of what we need to do. Shout out to Vincent Harris, my brains in many ways in public life. Give Vincent a big round of applause.
Congressmember Bass, how did the councilman influence, mentor the way you attacked some of the systemic problems that you also faced?
Well, you know, maybe the best way to answer that is an example, because of what we're going through now, it just feels so much like 1990. And when I was teaching at USC and going crazy over watching the whole crack cocaine, you know, Crips, Bloods, 1,000 homicides in 1 year, and the only thing coming from policymakers were laws to lock us up. And it was easy to predict what the future would bring, which we didn't use the term mass incarceration at the time, but it was obvious it was going to happen. And we tried and tried and tried, but I started a community coalition, and no idea really what I was doing, as Mark knows. And at the time, he was executive director at SCLC. And I do have to say that when he took over SCLC, how old were you? 20 what? 26. He took over as executive director of SCLC and really blew SCLC up to be one of the premier civil rights organizations in the country, not just in LA. And in the role that you played, Avis, mediation, to me, it's really like a part of your DNA. It's a part of your calm and your personality. And that's why everybody loves you for that. But I went to Mark, and Mark helped me put together the board of directors and basically told me how to run a nonprofit, and encouraged me to go take seminars to learn what the heck I had gotten myself into in starting Community Coalition. But helping to put the first board of directors together, serving as the chair of the board until he ran for public office. And then the partnership that we developed, of course, when everything blew up in '92, and you know, all of the liquor stores burnt down, and here we were trying to clean up and close them because those were kind of focal points for crime. And that's what the neighborhood said after we did surveys. So we did that work together. And you remember at the time, the ministers didn't know what to do with addiction, and they didn't understand why they couldn't just lift people out with prayer. And so we started together a group called Wings of Hope, where we essentially trained, but with my medical background, we were teaching, you know, about the physiology of addiction and to understand that it was a health issue and not just an issue of falling morality. And you know, we saw a massive problem, didn't really know how to deal with it, but tried to figure out how. And I would just say that some of the policies that were developed in the 1990s is our contributing factors to the people that are on the streets today. And so the question is, will we do this again? Will we play this movie again? Well, we've seen this movie, and we don't want it to happen again. And so here you are, now doing this big initiative around homelessness and trying to figure our way out of another massive humanitarian crisis that doesn't just seek the solution of how do we lock more of them up.
What do we not know about him, Ms. Ridley-Thomas, that you would like to share with us about how he is personally at home? And please embarrass him if you can.
Well, if you don't like to hear gospel singing every evening, coming from all parts of the house, you know, you would not experience the personal in my husband. And when I learned from his office staff that he sings and he makes jokes throughout, I thought he concentrated on home in doing those kinds of things. But no, he sings at his desk. That music that he grew up with.
Can I interrupt for a second? When you say he sings, does he sing well?
He does sing well, but I think he has a record, in fact, that he and his two siblings recorded when they were very young.
Let's hear something, though.
They want to hear you.
Yeah.
You notice he's not taking the mic, but he does, and he adheres very closely to that upbringing that Mama Sylvia ensured that he had. So he, I appreciated the stability, the integrity of Mark from when he was a young person. And as we have grown older, it's just gotten better like wine, I would say. Yes.
All right. Very nice. And I wanted to ask the councilman, kind of as this comes to a close, this, you know, when you do an event like this, celebrating 30 years in office, your name's going up on a building, it has a valedictory tone to it. It has a tone of, we've come to the end. I get that sense that this is not the end for you, and can you speak to that?
I ain't no ways tired. He brought me,
Come too far. Come too far.
I come too far from where he brought me from.
Nobody told me.
Nobody told me that the road would be easy.
That's it.
James Cleveland, ladies and gentlemen, made a little cameo in the building. Listen. Cornell and I spent a lot of time singing songs that formed our consciousness as young people, and they sustain us now. And so this is transitional at best. I'm leaning in harder as a member of the city council now than I did, Karen, when I was there in the early 90s. Why? Because the work requires it, it demands it. The conversations that we have now and that we will have prospectively as we launch new phases of our witness. Avis and I are doing a range of things. She currently is working as the founder and co-director of the Institute for Nonviolence in Los Angeles. Sinclair and Sebastian and I are conspiring on a range of things. This is a way of lifting up the quality of life. Professor West is leaning in, Mark, in terms of guiding dimensions of my next phase of work, and I can't get to it quickly enough. So there's a lot going on. Reva Martin and Candace McKeever, we're talking about a variety of things. Dr. Carlisle, there's a lot going on. And so, no, this is not a valedictory in that sense. This is really just an opportunity to say, in effect, listen, a lot of work has been done, and there are other venues and platforms from which to do it. I'm going to lean in, Kwame, double down, and make some interesting things happen. It could be in the biosciences, it could be in the arts, it could be in real estate. It's a whole lot of things I've got going on. I can't even slow it down. It's moving so fast. And so I want to give a shout out to all those people. You missed the call before, but if you've worked at the city, the state, or the county, would you stand up if you worked for Ridley-Thomas? Because these are days who made it happen. Come on, stand up. Mary, Dakshika, Hillary, Renata. Look at them, look at them, look at them. Vincent, Lisa, Lorenza, Dan, Cindy. Look, you all give me a lot of acknowledgement, but I'm telling you, it's been tremendous. Now, I don't know why in the world Kwame Cooper is standing up. Kwame has never drawn a paycheck that I had anything to do for, but he thought he did because he's worked so hard. Give him another round of applause. Fire Chief Kwame Cooper in the house. So listen, it's a wonderful way to express gratitude when we think about this. And so we're just going to keep moving forward on the issues that give life meaning and express it in a way that's worthy of what it means to be called human. That's what this is about. And if we do that, we even let retired basketball players in the room. Stand up, Norm Nixon. Look, Stormin' Norman is here doing incredible things. And so this is a multidisciplinary crew of those who do what they need to do. Professor West is going to give a little talk a little afterwards in the Keck building. If you all are interested in really hearing what he feels about things unrelated to Ridley-Thomas, you're invited at the invitation of the president to do so. We just wanted to try to talk about relationships. Everybody say relationships. That's all this is about. And they have helped me be the best that I can be. And names that have been invoked throughout this conversation is an expression. Those names express what it means to make something of the life that you have and the gifts you've been blessed with. Mark?
Mark Ridley-Thomas, ladies and gentlemen.